Hi friends, we are going to talk about common writing errors or frequent writing errors, things that I see the most often with sophomores when I'm proofreading and stuff like that. And I know your English teachers can probably attest to this too. This is definitely not all of the errors that I see, but these are kind of the main ones. So we're going to review some of those, and then I'm going to also show you an article that's linked that goes through some of the other ones that are just most common in writing in general, so not just with your age group. But these are kind of the ones that I see in our Avid class. So a lot of times we use words that are just unnecessary that we can just take right out, like very, any, just. Those are the kind of words, like my example is, it would be nice for me to just have it. You don't need the word just, you can just take that out. So it would be nice for me to have it. I think sometimes we try to add words if we're writing for a word length. That can be hard too. Or like if we have to get to 2 pages, we add some of these unnecessary words just to get to that page length, but that's not good writing. So that's honestly, it's distracting to what you're writing about. And in college too, your teachers and professors and whatnot are not going to want you to do things like that. So if you can't get to your page length, there's a good chance that you just don't know enough about the topic to write about it, okay? And there's no shame in that. You just have to go back. You have to go back a step. When I was writing my thesis for grad school, I'm like, oh my gosh, I was looking at examples and there were some that were like 80 pages long. And I'm like, there's no way I can write something that's that long. And then when I actually worked on it over the course of 2 years, I think mine ended up being like 95 pages long. So sometimes we look at word requirements and like length requirements and we get really freaked out and we're just like, there's no way I'll be able to like fill that. But you will. And again, if you're finding that that's a struggle, then you probably don't know enough about the topic and you have to go back and do some more research, do some more learning and stuff before you apply it to your writing. The next thing I see is common spelling mistakes. Spelling is something that we work on through life always. I even have spelling errors and stuff like that at times. We just sometimes go too fast, things like that. But homophones, those are like words with the same pronunciations, such as right, and right. And a lot of times we'll use the wrong one, okay? So same with like your, and your. We have to make sure we're using the right one. So like right with a W is writing, okay? Or if I'm turning right, then I'm using this form. Okay, so sometimes it's hard, but we have to double check those kind of things. So here's an example that I've seen, and some of these are copy and pasted right from other sophomores' writing works from years past. So I could show you some of the things that I see. So watch your words. That's the wrong form of your. This says you are. Okay, that's a conjunction. Spell check may not see words. Okay, that's the wrong form of see. We want S-E-E here. That are misused because they are spelled right. Okay, so sometimes, and that's a true statement, your spell check won't necessarily help you because you didn't spell the word wrong, you just used the wrong form, okay? So like this doesn't show up with a red line under it because it's technically a correctly written word, it's just the wrong one in the context, so it should be this one up here, okay? So spell check is a great tool, but you have to make sure that you are also proofreading on your own and don't just rely on that because you might not have all those things that pop up because you use the correct word. And I think I just said it was supposed to be this one, but it's supposed to be this one. Right, like as in correct, okay? That's one that we see a lot too. I love this poster. I wish I had it printed in my classroom. There, IR is ownership, so showing that it belongs to someone. This one has the little arrow because it shows you that it's referring to a place. And this one is a contraction. They are going to work, okay? So showing ownership, talking about a place, or talking about someone specifically doing something, or regarding one or more person. Next one is cuz. I see this all the time, okay? I know we're used to texting, so a lot of times we transfer that over into our writing, but when we're writing in academics, we have to be really cautious of that. Cuz, C-U-Z, is not a word, okay? And this one can be confusing because it's from the word because, right? But it also says cause, so you have to be careful with this one too It depends on the context with how you will say it, okay? But none of this CUZ type of stuff, that is not academic language, so we have to be really careful that we're not putting texting into our written work in school, okay? So we don't use this term because it actually means because, and the correct way to say that is cause. So we got to be careful there too. So the correct way to write it is I want to go because it will be fun. So not cause. Cause is not a word, okay? Incorrect adverbs I see occasionally too. So my example, so I would like to go to my friend's house. You don't need the word so. You shouldn't start a sentence that way. It should be I would like to go to my friend's house, period, okay? You don't have to have so in there. That's when we start to see run-on sentences, when we add in those adverbs in certain places. And we shouldn't be starting a sentence with an adverb. Other things to be mindful of, kinda, I see that a lot when we're typing, like I kinda like that. That actually is kind of, okay? Kinda is not a word. You have to type that out specifically using those two words, which like I said, I know we're used to texting things like that, so that's kind of why that transfers over sometimes. Make sure a question has a question mark, not a period. I know we learned that in like 3rd grade, but I still see those common punctuation mistakes. We'll talk about commas here later on too, and I know you do some work with that in English. Commas can be really tricky. Periods and question marks are pretty clear cut, but sometimes we get confused on where commas should go. And even I do that sometimes. I tend to overuse commas, so I put them in spots where they don't need to be. And then overusing words in general, so using the word more than 4 times in the same sentence, that means your sentence is too long, okay? And a lot of times we'll talk about like a list more so, like if sometimes it feels like we're making a list. Like, for example, my son was writing something about dinosaurs for school the other day, and he was like, some dinosaurs are slow, some dinosaurs are fast, some dinosaurs are tall. And then I'm like, whoa, okay, you've used the word some like 5 times in one area of your paper. So we need to come up with another word, okay? So that's where you could use a thesaurus or look for synonyms, things like that, to switch it up a little bit so it's not so repetitive, and then it starts to sound just like a list of information and not like an academic written paragraph or paper, okay? If you're noticing that your sentence is like 3 lines long, it's too long, okay? So it needs to be broken up. And we'll talk about paragraph breaks too. That's when you like are tabbing over like that. If your paragraph is taking up half the page, it's too long of a paragraph and your thoughts need to be broken up, which kind of gives your reader a break a little bit when they're reading through your paper or information. Wordiness, this is the last one that we're going to look at. Like I said before, it's not a solution to a paper that's too short. So if you're looking at a word requirement or a length requirement and you're just adding in unnecessary words, that is not going to help you in the long run. You're probably going to lose points on your rating if you start to do that. A sentence is wordy if it uses more words than necessary to convey the meaning. So if you're just adding in random irrelevant words to make it longer, then it's making your writing very unclear. So here's my example. Jessica ended up having to walk all the way home due to the fact that she missed the last train leaving Central Station, okay? You could just write, Jessica walked home because she missed the last train, okay? Where it's leaving is irrelevant, okay? Putting all the way home, all the way, that is irrelevant too. You can take that out. And I know we're very hesitant to do this a lot of times because we want to meet that word requirement or that length requirement of our paper. So by taking all those wordiness things out, we shorten the paper. But like I said, in the long run, you're going to be better off, and your academic writing is going to go further if you start to notice some of these things. So on the front page, I have this article linked, and some of it goes through the exact things that we just went through, like spelling mistakes, right, and right, run-on sentences, so not using a comma when you should be before coordinating conjunction, okay? So this incorrect one, my dog barks at the mailman, but she's too lazy to chase him. It should be my dog barks at the mailman, comma, but she's too lazy to chase him. So this is almost like a run-on because it's all crunched into one spot with no pause. Sentence fragments, an epic all-nighter. That's not like a complete sentence, okay? You need to add a subject or a verb. So I pulled an epic all-nighter, okay? So not just an epic all-nighter, it's just a statement, but it's missing that subject or verb. No comma after an introductory phrase. So again, commas can be tough sometimes, but here's a good example of a lack of a comma where you actually need one. Wordiness we talked about. I showed you this example in the slideshow. Comma splicing. I know you're going to learn about that in English at some point. This one can be a tricky one too. So the incorrect, he bought back to school clothes. His mom bought a scarf. That one needs an and. So he bought back to school clothes and his mom bought a scarf. So instead of just listing, so again, that feels more like a list, you have to make sure you have the and in there. Comma misuse, like I said, you'll learn more about commas because that's a hard one. More comma stuff. Squinting modifiers, this is a hard one. Incorrect, students who study rarely get bad grades. This is kind of how you should put it because you should have a modifier next to the word. Students who rarely study get bad grades, okay? So instead of putting students who study rarely, you want students who rarely study. So the rarely should actually come first. That's a hard one too, but the more you write, the better off you'll feel with those. And then subject-verb agreement, which you probably learned about in English too, is a good one to keep in mind. This one I see a lot that we make mistakes on. Incorrect, Michael study at the library every day. It should be Michael studies, so you have to change the form that you're talking about at the library every day. So I know that's a lot of stuff to remember, but if you just kind of start to keep some of these things in mind, your writing's really going to improve. And when you're proofreading is really when you should go back and look at these things and see, am I making some of these common errors? Am I using too many words? Am I using the word very a lot when it's not needed? Am I missing commas? Am I using the right form of there? Stuff like that. So I know it takes time, but like I said, the more you do it now in high school, by the time you get to college, it'll become second nature and you'll just start writing better and you'll have less proofreading to do.